The galaxy trembled in fear. Across the outer rim, human colonies sent frantic signals into the void, their pleas echoing through dark, empty space. Most of the galaxy ignored them. Few dared answer. Humans had always been considered weak, expendable, and predictable. Yet now, the outer colonies were under attack, and the danger was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The Vorath Dominion, a coalition of merciless alien warlords, had declared war on humanity. Their fleets were massive, their ships bristling with weapons that could level entire planets. Their hatred ran deep, born of centuries of fear and mistrust. For the Dominion, humanity was a threat, a puzzle to be crushed before it could grow. On the command bridge of the last surviving human battleship, Aurora's Edge, Captain Alara Kane stood rigid, staring at the galaxy map projected in the air before her. Blinking red dots marked every human world under siege, and every one was surrounded by enemy fleets. Smoke, fire, and radiation storms flickered across the holographic images, a visual reminder of the chaos consuming her people. "Status report," Kane said, her voice calm but tense. Lieutenant Draven, her second-in-command, turned from the console, his face pale. "All colonies are falling, Captain. We have scattered resistance units, but without reinforcements, we won't hold another week." Kane's jaw tightened. She had expected this, yet hearing it spoken aloud made it painfully real. Humanity was alone. For years, the galaxy had treated them as irrelevant, a minor species barely worth attention. And now, in the face of annihilation, that indifference became a death sentence. A sudden chime on the communications panel cut through the tense silence. Kane froze, frowning. "We don't have time for more noise," she thought. But the panel blinked insistently. The message was on a frequency humans rarely used, a deep, almost vibrating tone that seemed to press against the hull itself. "Open it," Kane ordered. Lieutenant Draven hesitated, fingers hovering over the console. "Captain, this frequency, it's alien. Not Dominion. Not anything we know." "Open it," Kane repeated, sharper this time. The message played. It was short. Alien. Yet strangely clear in meaning. SOS received. Help is coming. Prepare for war. The bridge fell silent. No one moved. Kane's mind raced. Who would answer a human SOS? We're supposed to be alone. Her heart pounded. Humans had survived wars before, but never like this. Never against an enemy this vast, this prepared. And now, someone, something, was coming. But who? Friend or foe? The projection above the map flickered. Deep in the uncharted regions, massive shadows moved against the star field. Ships, enormous and black, gliding silently through the void. Kane squinted, trying to make sense of them. They were unlike any human or Dominion vessel, too large, too angular, too alive in design. Lieutenant Draven spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Captain, those ships. I've seen references, in old legends. They call them the Deathworlders." "The Deathworlders?" Kane repeated, frowning. She had heard whispers of them in her training. A species that thrived on the deadliest planets, survivors of the harshest conditions. The galaxy feared them, not for conquest, but for their sheer, terrifying resilience. They're said to survive anywhere, any climate, any war. They've been through battles that destroyed entire systems. And they kill anything that stands in their way. Kane swallowed hard. Her gaze returned to the black ships. If the legends were true, these were no ordinary allies. These were monsters, survivors, killers of worlds. And yet, here they were, coming for humanity. The bridge lights flickered as tension thickened. Crew members whispered to each other, exchanging uneasy glances. Outside the viewport, stars streaked past as the Aurora's Edge adjusted course, trying to keep pace with the mysterious fleet approaching from beyond human space. Kane felt a mix of fear and awe. She had led her people through desperate campaigns before, but nothing like this. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Silence stretched across space, broken only by the hum of the ship's engines and the faint, rhythmic pulse of the Deathworlder fleet approaching in the distance. Then, a sudden alert. The sensors picked up movement in the Dominion fleets surrounding the nearest human colony. Hundreds of enemy ships shifted formation, sensing something, But what? Before Kane could react, a flash of energy lit the darkness. One Vorath battleship exploded in a ball of fire so massive that the nearest Dominion vessels shuddered. Energy pattern. Draven shouted. Unknown, Kane replied. Her pulse quickened. The explosions continued, precise and devastating, cutting through enemy formations as if guided by a mind far beyond human understanding. Through the viewport, the Deathworlder ships moved like shadows, their massive silhouettes gliding silently, deadly, and unstoppable. Each strike sent Dominion ships into chaos, ripping through their formations with terrifying efficiency. For the first time in months, hope sparked in Kane's chest. Humanity might survive. Maybe not unscathed, maybe not easily, but they might survive. Yet the question lingered, heavier than the hull of her ship itself. Why are they helping us? Legends said the Deathworlders answered only to those who could survive, those who had the will to endure anything. Humanity was untested, or so the galaxy thought. Kane took a deep breath and clenched her fists. She looked at her crew, at the blinking red dots on the map, at the fiery chaos consuming their worlds. And she knew, whatever came next, humanity would face it. Not alone, not weak, and not silently. The Deathworlders were coming. The galaxy had held its breath for centuries. And now, the fate of humanity was about to change forever. The fires of war had consumed the outer rim. Smoke and ash drifted across the skies of human colonies, and the screams of civilians echoed across planets stripped bare by the Vorath Dominion's relentless assault. Humanity was on the edge of extinction, fighting a war they had no hope of winning. Captain Alara Kane watched the destruction from the bridge of the Aurora's edge, her eyes scanning the holomap that flickered with red blips. Each one represented a world under siege. Entire fleets had already been destroyed, entire cities reduced to rubble. Every report brought worse news. Captain, the colony on Lysra 7 has fallen, Lieutenant Draven said quietly, unable to hide the tension in his voice. Only a few thousand civilians escaped before the Dominion destroyed the planet's core defenses. Kane clenched her fists. And the fleet? She asked. Scattered. They're retreating toward the rim. Most ships won't survive the jump. She turned away from the map and gazed out the viewport, where distant stars shone like pinpricks of hope in the endless darkness. But even those stars seemed dim now. The galaxy had abandoned them. Humanity had nowhere to hide, no allies to call upon, no reinforcements coming, at least, none that they knew of. In the shadow of this chaos, humans fought with desperation born of necessity. On the planet Vera Prime, young engineer Liko Van crouched in a crumbling building, wrench in hand, repairing a damaged drone. The metallic scent of smoke and burning circuits filled his lungs. Around him, other engineers and volunteers worked frantically, trying to restore any defenses left intact. Liko, someone shouted. Another Dominion strike is coming. He looked up. Outside, massive Vorath warships blotted out the sun, their weapons glowing like molten rivers ready to incinerate anything below. Liko swallowed hard and returned to his work. Every repair, every calculation, every shot fired might buy someone, somewhere, a few more hours of life. Back on the Aurora's edge, Kane's comms panel chimed again. A report from the fleet's reconnaissance drones appeared. Hundreds of Dominion ships were closing in on the remnants of human defenses near the Lycris cluster. They'll overwhelm the survivors if we don't act, Draven said. We have no reinforcements. No fleet support. Nothing. Kane's lips pressed into a thin line. We'll have to make our own reinforcements. Every ship, every soldier counts. We fight with what we have. She moved across the bridge, issuing orders to redirect energy to shields, prepare defensive fire, and evacuate civilian transports. Every decision was a gamble. Every choice could mean life or death. The tension was suffocating. And then, a deep vibration ran through the hull. The crew froze. The sensors lit up with readings they had never seen before. Massive ships, unlike anything humans had built or even imagined, were emerging from the uncharted regions of space. They are here, Draven whispered. Kane's eyes widened as she saw the colossal black forms moving silently, cutting through the void like predators. The Deathworlders had arrived. For a moment, hope and fear collided. These were the creatures of legend, feared across the galaxy for surviving the deadliest worlds, the harshest wars, and the most brutal enemies. And yet, here they were. Helping humanity. They won't just fight for us, Kane murmured to herself. We have to prove we're worth saving. The first battle with the Vorath Dominion after the Deathworlders' arrival was like nothing humanity had ever witnessed. The black ships moved with precision and deadly grace. Energy beams tore through enemy fleets, exploding ships with terrifying accuracy. It was a storm of destruction, and yet, it was strangely silent, as if the Deathworlders' fury was measured, deliberate, almost ceremonial. Human fleets joined cautiously, inspired by the overwhelming power of their new allies. For the first time in months, humans had a fighting chance. Even battered ships and scattered soldiers found renewed courage. Every strike they delivered now had meaning, every maneuver counted. On Lysra 7, Liko Van watched the Deathworlders attack from orbit. The sky above burned with the glow of energy weapons. For months, he had feared humanity's end. For months, he had hidden, repaired, and hoped. And now, he could see the impossible, the tide was turning. But the war was far from over. The Vorath Dominion was relentless. Their commanders were cunning, and their fleets enormous. Even with the Deathworlders' help, humans were still vulnerable. Every victory came at a cost, and the shadow of annihilation still loomed over the galaxy. Kane knew that hope alone was not enough. Strategy, courage, and sacrifice would be needed to survive the days ahead. She turned to Draven, her expression hard and determined. We're not just defending planets, she said. We're buying time. Time to fight back. Time to show the galaxy that humans aren't weak. Time to survive. The bridge was silent for a moment, the weight of their reality pressing down on every crew member. Outside, the Deathworlders' fleet moved like a shadow through the stars, their presence both terrifying and reassuring. Humanity was on the edge of extinction, and yet, for the first time, they weren't entirely alone. Liko Van clenched his fists as he repaired the last drone. If these legends are true, he whispered, then maybe humanity can survive this. And in the distance, the black shapes of the Deathworlders' ships moved ever closer, silent and deadly. Humanity's fate was still uncertain, but the first spark of hope had ignited. The war was far from over, but the fight, the real fight, was just beginning. The silence of space was broken by the approaching shadow. Massive black shapes moved through the stars, eclipsing distant suns, swallowing light in their path. Humanity's fleets, battered and scattered, watched in awe and fear. The Deathworlders had arrived. Captain Alara Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, her hands gripping the rail as she observed the colossal ships. They were unlike anything humans, or even the Vorath Dominion, had ever built. Hulls covered in black plating, jagged protrusions that seemed more organic than mechanical, glowing veins of energy tracing along their surfaces. Every ship was a fortress, every weapon a promise of destruction. Lieutenant Draven's voice was tense. Captain, they're huge. Too huge. Even our scanners can barely read them. They're real, Kane said, swallowing. And they're on our side. I think. The Deathworlders moved with silent precision. There was no confusion, no hesitation. Every ship shifted into formation, creating a wall between the human colonies and the incoming Vorath Dominion fleets. Kane's heart pounded as she watched their weapons charge, pulsing energy arcs that crackled across the void like lightning frozen in time. Then the first strike came. A Vorath cruiser surged forward, confident and aggressive, firing volleys at a human transport fleeing from the colony of Lysra 7. In an instant, the Deathworlders' response was brutal and decisive. A massive black vessel glided forward, its energy cannon firing in a single, precise beam. The Vorath cruiser exploded in a fiery cloud, shattering into pieces that drifted silently in space. The bridge crew gasped. Kane felt a thrill she hadn't experienced in months. Humans had been on the brink of annihilation, but now they were witnessing something beyond comprehension, an ally capable of wiping out entire fleets in seconds. Unbelievable, Draven muttered. They fight like shadows. Silent, deadly, unstoppable. Kane nodded, her eyes fixed on the viewport. And they didn't even hesitate. They're here to fight. But why us? Why help humans? No answer came. Only the deadly efficiency of the Deathworlders moving through space like predators hunting their prey. The Vorath Dominion, once confident in their superiority, began to falter. Their commanders hesitated, unable to comprehend the sudden appearance of these monsters. Ships that had seemed invincible moments ago were destroyed with precision strikes. Entire formations scattered, retreating, or exploding in flames. On the bridge of the Aurora's edge, Kane could feel the shift. Her crew leaned forward, gripping controls, eyes wide. For months, they had fought a losing battle, clinging to survival. Now, hope surged through them like electricity. "Captain," Draven said, "they're moving again, toward the inner colonies. They're coordinating. And it looks like they want us to follow." Kane's lips pressed into a thin line. "We follow. Every human ship that can still fly, every soldier who can still fight, moves with them. If they're giving us a chance, we take it." Outside, Liko Van on Lysra 7 stared at the sky. The black Deathworlder ships glided above the planet, a silent storm of power and dread. Their weapons fired in precise, devastating arcs, cutting through the Dominion fleets with terrifying ease. Civilians and engineers watched in awe and disbelief. For the first time in weeks, survival didn't seem impossible. The Deathworlders weren't just powerful, they were strategic. They didn't destroy randomly. Every strike, every movement, every burst of energy was deliberate. Kane realized that these were not just allies, they were masters of war. And humans were being given a chance to learn, to survive, to fight back. For the first time, she felt a strange kinship forming. Humanity had endured impossible odds before, survived catastrophes others thought fatal. Now, the Deathworlders, legends of survival, were standing beside them. Perhaps the galaxy had misjudged humanity. Then, the Deathworlder flagship, the largest vessel in the fleet, moved into view. Its sheer size dwarfed human battleships. Energy coils along its hull pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. From the vessel, a single communication was transmitted across all channels. It was not threatening, but it carried weight. "You called for help. We answer. Fight, or die trying." Kane felt a chill. That was all. No explanations, no negotiations. Just a statement of intent. And it was enough. "Draven," she said, her voice steady, "get the remaining ships organized. Stick to their formation. Watch and learn. Every move they make teaches us something." He nodded. "Understood, Captain. This is incredible. I've never seen anything like this." The first real human fleet response came seconds later. Ships repaired enough to jump into the battle moved forward, their weapons firing alongside the Deathworlders. For the first time, human energy blasts hit the enemy with precision, guided by the strategy they were learning from these terrifying allies. Across the galaxy, the Vorath Dominion faced something it had never encountered. Humans, thought weak and inferior, were now moving with a force beyond comprehension. And the Deathworlders, they were the reason. Kane knew the danger was far from over. The Vorath Dominion still had numbers, cunning, and deadly intent. But for the first time, humanity had a chance to fight, not just to survive, but to strike back. The galaxy watched, holding its breath. The shadow of the Deathworlders stretched across the stars, a silent warning and a promise. Humanity was no longer alone. And soon, the true battle for survival would begin. The battle had ended, but the galaxy was far from safe. The Vorath Dominion retreated in chaos, their fleets scattered, their pride shattered. Human colonies had been saved, at least for now, but the cost had been high. Ships lay in ruins, cities were scarred, and the fear of annihilation lingered like a shadow. Captain Alara Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, staring at the silent black shapes of the Deathworlder fleet hovering nearby. Unlike humans, they made no celebration, no fanfare. Their massive vessels floated in perfect formation, unmoving, imposing, as though the stars themselves feared to disturb them. Lieutenant Draven broke the silence. "Captain, we survived. Somehow, they did what no one else could. But, why? Why help us?" Kane shook her head. She didn't have an answer. For months, humans had fought alone, abandoned by the galaxy. And now, these terrifying creatures, the Deathworlders, had arrived to save them, without explanation, without warning. A signal came from the flagship of the Deathworlders, transmitted directly to the Aurora's edge. The language was alien, strange, and guttural, but the translation system converted it into human speech. "You fight to survive. We answer those who endure. Observe and learn. The message was brief, impersonal, but the meaning was clear. The Deathworlders did not fight out of compassion, they fought out of respect for those who could survive. Humanity was being tested. Humanity was being taught. Kane felt a chill. Observe and learn, she muttered. They're teaching us, not just fighting for us. They want us to rise to their level. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Survival had always been a struggle for humans, but now survival demanded more than courage. It demanded adaptation, resilience, and the willingness to embrace something far beyond ordinary understanding. Meanwhile, on Lysra 7, young engineer Liko Van worked with a team of survivors, repairing ships and fortifications. He had watched the Deathworlders' precision in battle, their methods, their tactics. He realized that everything they did had purpose, every movement calculated, every strike aimed to destroy not just ships but opportunity for failure. They don't fight like anyone we know, Liko said quietly to his friend Mara, another engineer. It's like, they see the weakness in everything and remove it before it can grow. Mara nodded. And they're teaching us. Look at the ships we repaired, we're learning to fight differently now. To survive differently. Maybe we can do this too. Back on the Aurora's edge, Kane studied the Deathworlders' fleet movements. She had spent hours analyzing their attacks, their defensive patterns, their methodical strikes. Slowly, understanding began to form. The Deathworlders were survivors of the deadliest worlds imaginable. Planets that could burn the skin off a human, storms that would crush a city, radiation that could melt metal, all worlds they had conquered and endured. They survived the impossible, Kane said aloud. And now they expect us to survive too. Draven looked skeptical. Expect us? We're humans, Captain. We've survived wars, yes, but this is something else entirely. Kane's gaze hardened. We survived because we adapt. Because we fight when others would surrender. The Deathworlders, they're giving us a chance to see what survival truly means. If we can endure this, we'll be stronger than the galaxy ever imagined. That night, Kane walked the empty corridors of her ship, deep in thought. The crew rested after the exhausting first strike, but she could feel the weight of what was to come. The Vorath Dominion would return, stronger, angrier, and more desperate. Humanity could not rely on the Deathworlders forever. They had to learn, adapt, and survive on their own. She paused by the viewport, looking out at the black fleet looming like a shadow over the stars. A strange sense of awe and fear mixed in her chest. These creatures were terrifying, yes, but they were not invincible. They had limits, and humanity, clever and resilient, might just discover them. Kane's comms crackled. A Deathworlder voice, translated again, spoke briefly. Your species endures. Learn quickly. Death comes to the unready. Kane nodded. We will learn, she whispered. And we will endure. We're humans. That's what we do. As dawn spread across the human colonies, the survivors began to see a new reality forming. The Deathworlders' presence was not just protection, it was a lesson. Every ship, every maneuver, every strike taught humans how to fight smarter, faster, stronger. Engineers, pilots, and soldiers worked harder, inspired by the example of these terrifying allies. Even civilians felt the change. Fear remained, but now it was tempered with determination. Humanity was being forged into something the galaxy would not forget. Survival was no longer just escaping death, it was rising above it, learning from it, and becoming something greater. For Captain Kane, the revelation was clear. The Deathworlders had not come to rescue humans out of pity. They had come because humanity had the potential to endure, to adapt, and to fight beyond expectation. And if humans could absorb the lessons of these legendary survivors, perhaps they could face the galaxy not as victims, but as equals. Kane stood once more on the bridge, eyes fixed on the stars. The war isn't over, she said. The Vorath Dominion will strike again. But now, we have knowledge, strategy, and allies. We may still be outnumbered, but we are no longer outmatched. Humanity has a chance. And we will not fail. The Deathworlders waited in the void, silent and watchful, their purpose clear. Humanity was being tested, and in the crucible of war, only the strongest would survive. The battle had ended, but the galaxy was far from safe. The Vorath Dominion retreated in chaos, their fleets scattered, their pride shattered. Human colonies had been saved, at least for now, but the cost had been high. Ships lay in ruins, cities were scarred, and the fear of annihilation lingered like a shadow. Captain Alara Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, staring at the silent black shapes of the Deathworlder fleet hovering nearby. Unlike humans, they made no celebration, no fanfare. Their massive vessels floated in perfect formation, unmoving, imposing, as though the stars themselves feared to disturb them. Lieutenant Draven broke the silence. "Captain, we survived. Somehow, they did what no one else could. But, why? Why help us?" Kane shook her head. She didn't have an answer. For months, humans had fought alone, abandoned by the galaxy. And now, these terrifying creatures, the Deathworlders, had arrived to save them, without explanation, without warning. A signal came from the flagship of the Deathworlders, transmitted directly to the Aurora's edge. The language was alien, strange, and guttural, but the translation system converted it into human speech. "You fight to survive. We answer those who endure. Observe and learn." The message was brief, impersonal, but the meaning was clear. The Deathworlders did not fight out of compassion, they fought out of respect for those who could survive. Humanity was being tested. Humanity was being taught. Kane felt a chill. "Observe and learn," she muttered. "They're teaching us, not just fighting for us. They want us to rise to their level." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Survival had always been a struggle for humans, but now survival demanded more than courage. It demanded adaptation, resilience, and the willingness to embrace something far beyond ordinary understanding. Meanwhile, on Lysra 7, young engineer Liko Van worked with a team of survivors, repairing ships and fortifications. He had watched the Deathworlders' precision in battle, their methods, their tactics. He realized that everything they did had purpose, every movement calculated, every strike aimed to destroy not just ships but opportunity for failure. "They don't fight like anyone we know," Liko said quietly to his friend Mara, another engineer. "It's like, they see the weakness in everything and remove it before it can grow." Mara nodded. "And they're teaching us. Look at the ships we repaired, we're learning to fight differently now. To survive differently. Maybe we can do this too." Back on the Aurora's edge, Kane studied the Deathworlders' fleet movements. She had spent hours analyzing their attacks, their defensive patterns, their methodical strikes. Slowly, understanding began to form. The Deathworlders were survivors of the deadliest worlds imaginable. Planets that could burn the skin off a human, storms that would crush a city, radiation that could melt metal, all worlds they had conquered and endured. "They survived the impossible," Kane said aloud. "And now they expect us to survive too." Draven looked skeptical. "Expect us? We're humans, Captain. We've survived wars, yes, but this is something else entirely." Kane's gaze hardened. "We survived because we adapt. Because we fight when others would surrender. The Deathworlders, they're giving us a chance to see what survival truly means. If we can endure this, we'll be stronger than the galaxy ever imagined." That night, Kane walked the empty corridors of her ship, deep in thought. The crew rested after the exhausting first strike, but she could feel the weight of what was to come. The Vorath Dominion would return, stronger, angrier, and more desperate. Humanity could not rely on the Deathworlders forever. They had to learn, adapt, and survive on their own. She paused by the viewport, looking out at the black fleet looming like a shadow over the stars. A strange sense of awe and fear mixed in her chest. These creatures were terrifying, yes, but they were not invincible. They had limits, and humanity, clever and resilient, might just discover them. Kane's comms crackled. A Deathworlder voice, translated again, spoke briefly. "Your species endures. Learn quickly. Death comes to the unready." Kane nodded. "We will learn," she whispered. "And we will endure. We're humans. That's what we do." As dawn spread across the human colonies, the survivors began to see a new reality forming. The Deathworlders' presence was not just protection, it was a lesson. Every ship, every maneuver, every strike taught humans how to fight smarter, faster, stronger. Engineers, pilots, and soldiers worked harder, inspired by the example of these terrifying allies. Even civilians felt the change. Fear remained, but now it was tempered with determination. Humanity was being forged into something the galaxy would not forget. Survival was no longer just escaping death, it was rising above it, learning from it, and becoming something greater. For Captain Kane, the revelation was clear. The Deathworlders had not come to rescue humans out of pity. They had come because humanity had the potential to endure, to adapt, and to fight beyond expectation. And if humans could absorb the lessons of these legendary survivors, perhaps they could face the galaxy not as victims, but as equals. Kane stood once more on the bridge, eyes fixed on the stars. "The war isn't over," she said. "The Vorath Dominion will strike again. But now, we have knowledge, strategy, and allies. We may still be outnumbered, but we are no longer outmatched. Humanity has a chance. And we will not fail." The Deathworlders waited in the void, silent and watchful, their purpose clear. Humanity was being tested, and in the crucible of war, only the strongest would survive. The galaxy held its breath. After the first victories, humans and Deathworlders had begun to recover, repair, and regroup. But the Vorath Dominion was far from defeated. Their commanders were cunning, ruthless, and desperate. Every failure in the Outer Rim had fueled their hatred, and now they planned a counterattack that would crush humanity once and for all. Captain Alara Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, eyes scanning the holomap as red blips swarmed from the Outer Rim. Hundreds of Dominion ships advanced in precise formations, blocking escape routes and surrounding the remaining human colonies. The enemy's intentions were clear: annihilation. "They're coming," Lieutenant Draven said, his voice tense. "And this time, they won't hold back." Kane's jaw tightened. "We won't either. Prepare the fleet. We fight as one, humans and Deathworlders together. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon counts." The Deathworlder flagship moved into position, massive and silent. From its hull, pulses of energy radiated outward, scanning for weaknesses in the incoming enemy formations. Kane studied the data flowing across her console. The Deathworlders had already identified flaws in the Dominion strategy, and now it was up to humanity to act. On Lysra 7, young engineer Liko Van and his team had repaired several battle drones and transports. Liko studied the schematics left by the Deathworlders, trying to understand the logic behind their attacks. Hours of observation and repair had taught him patterns, weaknesses, and strategies. "This is it," he whispered to Mara. "If we can follow their lead, maybe we can make a real strike. One that hits them where it hurts." The first clash began in silence, followed by chaos. Dominion fleets surged forward, energy weapons lancing the void. Ships exploded mid-flight, and debris rained down on planets below. Human pilots, still learning, struggled to hold formation, but the Deathworlders' presence steadied them. Every maneuver, every attack, was coordinated to create openings in the enemy's defenses. Then Kane spotted it, a flaw in the Dominion's fleet, a weak point near the command flagship controlling the enemy's entire operation. One successful strike could destabilize the entire enemy formation. "Draven," Kane said, pointing to the holomap. "That's it. The command ship. If we take it out, the rest will scatter. Assemble the strike team, transport ships, drones, fighters. We're going in." Draven hesitated. "Captain, it's risky. Too many could die." Kane's eyes hardened. "Everything we've done so far has been risky. This is our chance to turn the tide. We take it, or we lose everything." The strike team launched, weaving through enemy fire with deadly precision. The Deathworlders provided cover, obliterating Vorath cruisers that attempted to intercept. Kane felt her heart race as her own ship maneuvered closer, weapons ready. This was more than survival, it was humanity taking control of its destiny. Liko Van watched from orbit, controlling a squadron of drones. Every move he made was based on what he had learned from the Deathworlders. Each drone strike, each calculated maneuver, chipped away at the enemy's defenses. The Dominion's command ship shuddered under the assault, systems failing one by one. On the bridge of the Vorath flagship, panic spread like wildfire. Officers shouted orders that were too late. Their formations collapsed, their weapons misfired, and communication faltered. The humans, guided by the Deathworlders, were striking where it hurt the most. Kane gritted her teeth. All units, focus fire. Now. Break their command ship. Energy beams, missiles, and drones converged on the flagship. Shields flared, weapons fired in a desperate attempt to defend it, but it was no use. With a massive explosion, the command ship detonated, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. The Dominion fleets faltered, disorganized and vulnerable. "Captain," Draven said, awe in his voice, "it worked, it actually worked. They are scattering." Kane allowed herself a brief nod. "It's not over yet. Pursue them, push them back, and reclaim our space. Every ship counts." Across the galaxy, the Vorath Dominion was in chaos. Without central command, their fleets retreated in disarray. Human and Deathworlder ships pursued selectively, cutting down stragglers but avoiding unnecessary losses. Victory was within reach, but Kane knew it came at a cost. On Lysra 7, Liko Varn and his team cheered quietly as the Dominion retreat became apparent. For the first time in months, the people of the Outer Rim dared to hope. Humanity had struck back. Humanity had won a decisive moment. Kane looked out at the stars, black and unbroken except for the looming shapes of the Deathworlder fleet. They had guided humanity, taught them, protected them, but they did not celebrate. They waited, as if reminding humans that survival was never guaranteed. She turned to Draven. "This is what they wanted us to see. The galaxy thinks humans are weak. They think we can't survive. But we just proved them wrong. And we've only begun." Draven smiled grimly. "I never thought we'd see the day when human and Deathworlder ships fought side by side. The Dominion didn't know what hit them." Kane nodded. "They'll regroup, they'll return. But now we know, humans can endure, humans can fight. And next time, we'll be ready." The galaxy had witnessed a turning point. From the brink of destruction, humanity had risen. Guided by legends of survival, the Deathworlders, they had learned, adapted, and struck decisively. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humanity was not just surviving, they were a force to be reckoned with. Kane allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. The battle had tested them, pushed them to the edge, and revealed the strength humanity had hidden all along. And as the stars stretched endlessly into the void, she knew one truth above all. Survival was not just about living, it was about rising stronger than the galaxy ever expected. The shockwave of the Vorath Dominion's defeat rippled across the galaxy. Their fleets, once thought unstoppable, had been shattered, their command destroyed. Human colonies that had trembled in fear for months now dared to hope. Humanity was no longer on the defensive, they were taking back what had been stolen. Captain Alara Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, watching the stars streak past as the fleet pursued the fleeing enemy. Her crew moved with a newfound confidence. Tactics, coordination, and courage, the lessons of the Deathworlders had transformed them. Humanity was no longer just surviving, they were striking. Draven's voice broke the silence. "Captain, the Dominion is retreating toward the Outer Rift. They've scattered, but remnants of their fleet are still dangerous." Kane nodded. "We hit them selectively. No reckless attacks. Every move counts. The galaxy has doubted us for too long." The first targets were outlying colonies recently captured by the Dominion. Humans and Deathworlders moved together, attacking with precision. Planet after planet was liberated. Dominion garrisons, caught off guard and demoralized, surrendered or fled. On the planet of Krythus, civilians watched in disbelief as human and Deathworlder ships swooped down, firing only at enemy positions. Smoke rose from Dominion installations, but no human city was harmed. Children who had hidden in fear now ran into the streets, cheering for the returning fleets. Liko Varn stood on the landing platform of a recovered colony, his hands blackened with machinery grease. He had helped repair transport ships, weapons, and drones. Watching the Deathworlders' tactics in battle had taught him strategies humans had never known. "They're not just powerful," he whispered to Mara, another engineer. "They're survivors. And they're showing us how to survive too. How to fight smarter, not just harder." The Deathworlders remained silent, impassive observers at first, letting humanity take the lead. But when needed, they struck decisively, eliminating remaining Dominion cruisers with terrifying efficiency. Humanity, guided by their example, began to think strategically, using terrain, formation, and timing to overwhelm the enemy. The tide of war had shifted. Where humans had once fled in terror, they now moved boldly. Ships that had barely survived previous battles now executed coordinated strikes alongside Deathworlder dreadnoughts. Soldiers trained in new tactics assaulted Dominion outposts with precision. Engineers repaired weapons mid-battle. Humanity had grown stronger, faster, sharper. Even the Dominion began to fear the name human. Their propaganda, which once painted humans as weak, disorganized, and insignificant, was now meaningless. Reports of humans and Deathworlders striking together, liberating colonies, and destroying fleets spread through Vorath ranks like wildfire. Confidence crumbled. On the bridge of the Aurora's edge, Kane issued orders with calm authority. Target the remaining supply lines. Cut their reinforcements. Force them to retreat further. Every planet we liberate is a statement, humans will not be crushed. Draven smiled grimly. They'll never underestimate us again. But Kane's expression remained serious. They will try to destroy us. They always do. But now we are ready. We know how to fight. We know how to survive. And we will show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. The first full-scale human-led offensive began. Fleet formations advanced with deadly coordination. The Vorath Dominion tried to regroup, but their movements were slow, hesitant, and predictable. Humans struck decisively, targeting enemy ships that controlled defensive networks. Deathworlders provided cover, eliminating those who resisted. The Dominion had underestimated humans for centuries, and it was proving fatal. As battles raged, civilians of liberated worlds joined in whatever way they could. Engineers rebuilt weapons and shields. Pilots, trained in haste, took to the skies. Farmers and traders carried supplies, weapons, and messages of hope. Every liberated colony strengthened the human cause. Liko Van looked up at the sky as a Dominion cruiser exploded far above, flames illuminating the night. "We're not just surviving anymore," he said. "We're winning. We're taking back what's ours." Kane watched him, pride hidden behind her stoic expression. Humanity had proven its strength, resilience, and ingenuity. They had learned from legends of survival, the Deathworlders, but the courage, determination, and will to endure were all human. The battles continued, but for the first time, the outcome felt certain. Humanity was no longer a victim of the galaxy, they were a force rising from the ashes of fear. Every victory, every liberated world, every destroyed Dominion ship was proof, humans could fight, endure, and reclaim their place among the stars. And through it all, the Deathworlders remained in the shadows, silent, imposing, and deadly. They did not celebrate victories, they did not praise, they only observed. Humanity's triumphs were their own, earned through courage, strategy, and resilience. The galaxy began to notice. The whispers started, humans are not weak. Humans fight. Humans endure. Stories of the Outer Rim spread like wildfire. A species long underestimated was proving its worth. Captain Kane stood on the bridge, staring at the stars stretching into the void. "We're not done yet," she said quietly. "The Dominion will return. But humanity is no longer afraid. We fight back. We reclaim what is ours. And next time, we will be stronger than they can imagine." Across the liberated colonies, across the repaired fleets, across the repaired drones and battle stations, a single truth emerged: humanity would not only survive, they would rise. And with the Deathworlders at their side, humanity's revenge had only just begun.